House will come to order. Today's Pledge of Allegiance is by David Acevedo from Arrupe Jesuit High School in Denver.
Please join us in the pledge. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Representatives Arndt, Becker J, Becker K, Beckman, Benavides, Bridges, Bridges,
Excused.
Buck, Buckner, Carver, Catlin, Coleman, Covarrubias, Covarrubias,
I meant to bring that out to you.
there he is. Danielson,
So I'll put you in for next week if it changes.
Danielson,
Excused.
Escar, Everett,
Excused.
Exum, excused. Foot, Foot,
Excused.
Garnett, Garnett,
Excused.
Janal, Gray, Hamner, Hamner. Representative Foote is present.
Excused.
Hanson, Herod, Putin, Humphrey, Jackson, Kennedy, Kraft-Tharp, Kraft-Tharp,
Excused.
oh, Representative Kraft-Tharp is present. Landgraf, Lawrence, Lebsack, Lee, Leonard, Lewis, Liston, Lontine, Lundeen, McKean,
Excused.
McLaughlin, Melton, Michelson Janae, Neville, Pabon, Pedersen, Rankin, Ransom, Ryer, Roberts, Rosenthal, Sane. Representative Garnett is present. Salazar. Sandridge. Sias. Singer.
Excused.
Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle. Van Winkle.
Crisanta, do you want to do the resolution first, or what's your preference?
Either way.
I mean, because then you'll just have to come back. It's up to you.
Representative Everett is present.
Excused.
Weissman. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Winter. Winter.
Excused.
Wist. Young. Madam Speaker.
Present.
Bridges, Danielson, Exum, Hamner, Singer.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Look at all these smiling faces. 57 present, 8
With 57 present and 8 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative McLaughlin.
I move, Madam Speaker, that the Journal of Monday, January 22nd, 2018 be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
All right, members, you have heard the motion. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. That motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Representative Hamner is present. That's okay. Announcements and introductions, members. Representative Janal, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, members. Health Insurance and Environment Committee, we are meeting this morning in room 107, and we will be hearing the Colorado Health Institute. They will provide a presentation and probably about 20 minutes, and then enough time for Q&A. So we are meeting for Health Insurance and Environment upon adjournment. Thank you.
Representative Kraftharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Business Committee. Business and Labor Affairs.
Hold on one
Business
second,
Affairs and Labor
Representative
Committee.
Representative Kraftharp.
Thank you very much. So, Business Affairs and Labor Committee. Get out your pens and paper. Let's jot this down. Today at, oh, he really did. Look at that. So today, upon adjournment, room 271 is a joint business committee meeting where we will be conversing with the Joint Budget Committee and with legal legislative services staff who will train us on the new format of the fiscal analysis that they're doing. So that's today upon adjournment. This afternoon, you may do whatever you wish. Okay, it's your free day. We may expect you to report out on it later, so, but today is a free day this afternoon. Thursday at 1:45, Representative, Thursday at 1:45 is a field trip. We're going to the new Comcast offices. You will be getting an email about all of the logistics, but you will be walking there. We will be starting at 1:45, so you will be expected to be on time there at 1:45. We'll be going about an hour there. Okay, got it? That's your week. Thank you, Business Affairs and Labor.
Any further announcements? Representative Wilson? Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hesitate to follow that structured announcement by Representative Kraftharp. Ladies and gentlemen, now, Representative Sandridge, now you pay attention. Thursday of this week is the Sportsman's Caucus, i.e. Hot Dog Day. Next month it'll be third Thursday, but because of our starting date, we did it a week later. On the announcements, please note, because the new renovated meeting rooms, there are restrictions on eating, so we put special information there for you. It's extremely important that you make sure that the aides and the staff members and so forth understand this. The meeting will be in room 109, but we want you to arrive at 11:30 to get your food, if you will, so that that can be consumed before going into the committee room. It'll still be downstairs. You'll still have the special table for legislators. Everything's the same except where you eat. The second piece, you also have a membership form for the Sportsman's Caucus. So if you would like to join the Sportsman's Caucus, please fill that out. Thank you.
Representative Arns.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Ag,
Mr. Barnes.
Livestock, and Natural Resource Committee will meet upon adjournment tomorrow because we're going to hear the Senate joint resolution for the water project's eligibility list. Should be short. We'll meet in our normal conference room, and I'll announce it again tomorrow. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, this is a final reminder tonight about the Colorado Technology Association legislative reception starting at 4:30 at 1600 Broadway, which is the Colorado State Bank building. It's up on the 13th floor, Suite 1350. Suite 1350, Colorado Technology Association legislative reception tonight. This is one you don't want to miss. You want to stay in the loop. You want to know what's going on. This affects your livelihood, your phone, your computer, your life. Hope to see you there. Bye.
Any further announcements or introductions? Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing no further announcements or introductions, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of House Joint Resolution 18-1002.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of HJR 18-1002. Mr. Randall, would you like to read the title?
Just like you do a bill.
House Joint Resolution 1002 by Representatives McLaughlin and Winter, all Senator Donovan, concerning the outdoor recreation industry.
Representative
I'll have you do it.
Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move House Joint Resolution HJR 18-1002. Sorry. That's what I said, right?
And would you like to have it be read at length?
Yes. Please read it.
Right, Mr. Randall.
Whereas Colorado's outdoor recreation industry annually generates $28 billion in consumer spending, contributes $9.7 billion in wages and salaries, and $2 billion in state and local tax revenue, and supports 229,000 direct jobs across the state. And whereas, in addition to economic benefits, outdoor recreation yields a variety of positive individual and community health impacts, including improved physical fitness, increased confidence and creativity, and reduced stress and anxiety. And whereas the opportunities for recreation and access to Colorado's parks and public land serve as an incentive for businesses and employees to locate in or relocate to Colorado. And whereas nearly 3/4 of Coloradans participate in outdoor recreation activities each year and take great pride in conservation of and access to their public lands. And whereas many organizations and businesses in the state actively work to support sustainable outdoor recreation, including hunting and fishing, and to conserve Colorado's lands and waterways. And whereas Colorado boasts a wealth of stunning lands and recreational opportunities, including the state's more than 24 ski areas, 58 mountains ranked as 14ers, 42 state parks, some 350 state wildlife areas, and more than 300 miles of gold medal fisheries, the Great Sand Dunes, Mesa Verde, Black Canyon of the Gunnison, and Rocky Mountain National Parks, the Canyons of the Ancients, Yucca House, Hovenweep, Dinosaur, and Colorado National Monuments, and the vast grasslands of the Eastern Plains. And whereas these lands and waterways serve as important habitats for a variety of species, and many of these vistas and habitats are on public lands, and whereas Colorado's lands and waters support not only outdoor recreation, but also jobs related to agriculture, energy, and natural resources, and whereas Colorado draws 10 of millions of visitors each year, 82.4 million in 2016, from across the nation and around the world, many of whom visit to take advantage of the outdoor recreation and tourism opportunities that Colorado offers, making the state a leader in outdoor recreation. And whereas these lands and recreation opportunities require well-funded and accessible public lands and waters, and the state of Colorado has taken many significant actions to support and protect public lands and outdoor recreation opportunities in the state. And whereas one of these actions was the 1992 establishment of the Great Outdoors Colorado program, which protects urban and rural wildlife for people and wildlife, connects people to the outdoors, and inspires children and their families to explore and take care of our great outdoors. And whereas in 2016, Colorado's General Assembly passed a first-in-the-nation joint resolution that established a State Public Lands Day to honor and celebrate our public lands and the many and varied industries that benefit from these resources. And in 2017, the General Assembly adopted a resolution in support of our national monuments. And whereas Colorado was among the first states in the nation to create an outdoor recreation industry office dedicated to inspiring industries and communities to thrive in Colorado's great outdoors by focusing on economic development, conservation and stewardship, education and workforce training, and health and wellness. And whereas Colorado's hosting of the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show will draw more than 85,000 visitors per year, generate an estimated economic impact of $110 million, and fuel direct growth of the outdoor recreation industry throughout the state. And whereas for all the reasons stated above, Colorado is the ideal location to host the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, as members of the Colorado General Assembly, stand united to enthusiastically welcome the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show, extend our best wishes to all participants and attendees for a successful and enjoyable show, and request that Colorado continue its support for the state's thriving outdoor industry and the many benefits the outdoor industry affords this state. Colorado continue its legacy of funding and expanding access to public lands and waters that provide world-class outdoor recreation opportunities, and Colorado's governor similarly affirm support for Colorado's outdoor recreation industry, outdoor economy, and our public lands.
Thank you, members. Please be seated. We are very excited to be hosting the Outdoor Retailer and Snow Show. Colorado has a strong history of supporting outdoor recreation. We have some pictures behind us of both Representative McLaughlin and I using our outdoor retail gear to enjoy the great state of Colorado. We've developed as a hub for the industry, and that's reflected in the decision by the Outdoor Industry Association, Snow Sports Industries of America, and Emerald Expositions to move the Outdoor Retailer Snow Show to Colorado for the first time this year.
We don't need studies and reports to tell us what we already know. Coloradoans and visitors alike love recreating in our state, and the economies inspired by it benefits all parts of our state. Many of you all likely spend your weekends and vacations enjoying our outdoors and the opportunities to hike, bike, hunt, fish, ski, raft, paddleboard, and more.
That said, we do have some key facts and figures about recreation in Colorado. Colorado is a thriving outdoor recreation industry. It's estimated that it generates $28 billion in consumer spending annually.
It also contributes 229,000 direct jobs, and those who work in the industry have collectively earned over $9.7 billion in wages and salaries.
And 71% of Coloradans report participating in recreation every year. That doesn't include visits from friends and family from out of state.
Colorado drew over 82 million visits in 2016. People come from around the nation and world to experience what we have here.
In addition to buying gear, guides, hiring guides, and stopping to fill up our gas tanks, all of us who engage in recreation in Colorado have generated $2 billion in state and local tax revenues.
Since 2015, more than 75 outdoor company executives have committed to attract, retain, and advance more women as a cornerstone strategy.
Obviously, the stunning mountains, canyons, plains, rivers, and everything in between is why so many want to enjoy our state. But other states have great spaces too and don't see the levels of recreation that we do. It's not an accident. We've been working as a state to promote recreation here, from efforts in small towns like Cortez to big events like the Outdoor Retailer Show this week. We're cultivating this industry.
Please join me in welcoming the following visitors from the outdoor industry. We have Louise Benitez, the director of the Colorado Office of Recreation, and her staff.
Please stand and be recognized.
His staff.
And hold the applause to the end. And we have a lot of people to recognize, so let's clap for them all together in a big thunderous applause at the end. We have Amy Roberts, Executive Director of the Outdoor Industry Association.
Amy, yeah. Marissa Nicholson, Vice President of the Outdoor Reeler Emerald Expositions.
Nick Sargent, President, Snow Sports Industries of America.
Daryl Denny, Vice President of Emerald Expositions.
Jennifer Holcomb, Marketing Director for Outdoor Retailer.
And Maria McNulty, COO of SIA.
Let's now give them a round of applause. Please stand and be recognized. And we hope you all have a chance to make it out to the show this week. The show is estimated to draw 85,000 visitors, bring in an economic input of $110 million. And you do the last two.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. It's estimated. The inaugural Colorado Show will kick off this week and runs January 25th through the 28th, and is followed by the on-snow demos in Copper Mountain through January 30th. This summer, the show will run July 23rd through the 26th. Please welcome, and we're so happy you've come to Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Representative McLaughlin and Representative Winter. We have a motion that is on the table, and it is for the passage of HJR 18-1002. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. HJR 1002 is passed. Would somebody like to make a motion on co-sponsors? All right, Representative Winter.
I would like to move that the roll call of the House be incorporated as co-sponsors to Resolution HJR 1810.
Okay, there has been a request to open up the machine for co-sponsors, so we'll go ahead and do that. Co-sponsors on the resolution. Please close the machine. And on behalf of the entire General Assembly, thank you so much for joining us today. It is great to see everybody here. We're very excited about all that you're doing. Next up, we have General Orders, second reading of bills. Representative Foote. All right. Seeing no objection, Representative Foote will take the chair.
Thank you.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon the motion of the majority leader, and the coat rule is relaxed.
Why weren't you smiling?
Yeah, just send that one to me.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1022.
House Bill 1022, by Representative Sias and Kraft Tharp, also Senator John Neville, concerning a requirement that the Department of Revenue issue a request for information of an electronic sales and use tax simplification system.
The bill last June.
Representative Kraft Tharp.
1216.
I move House Bill 181022. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
What is it? 116?
I think it was,
Representative.
Thank you very much.
Kraft Tharp.
Last year, this legislature passed a bill that convenes an interim committee, the Sales and Use Tax Simplification Task Force. Colorado has one of the most convoluted, complicated tax systems in the country. There are approximately 700 tax sources. And so we hear regularly from businesses, both here in Colorado, but also national businesses that come in here in Colorado to work with us, how convoluted, how difficult our taxing system is. So this last summer, the task force met. We met 4 times. We heard from people throughout the country, and we had a lot of conversations around how we can be able to simplify our sales and use tax system. This is the first step, and Representative Sias will explain what our first step is.
Representative Sias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this bill is as Representative Kraft Tharp said, is the first phase in addressing what has been a huge problem for Colorado businesses and has increased costs for Colorado consumers. What this bill will do is create a RFI process under which the Department of Revenue will get together with stakeholders, most of whom have already been involved in the task force process, and come up with a request for essentially a software solution to this problem. And we heard testimony this summer from several representatives from private industry who are already doing this in conjunction with other jurisdictions, and their ability to create a software solution that allows us to balance the interests of business in being able to have a one-stop shop for submitting and processing their sales and use tax, and also the interest of our home rule cities, the municipal league, and so forth, with preserving their independence. And I would mention that this bill came out of the interim committee unanimously with the support of the home rule representatives, CML, and industry, and it also came out of the House Business Committee unanimously because it really does reflect a great deal of hard work and compromise and a very solid first step forward. So I would ask very much for your all support.
Come on, please, come on.
And is there any further discussion on House Bill 1022? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1022 is adopted. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1038.
House Bill 1038 by Representative Valdez, also Senators Corman Donovan, concerning establishing a continuing education requirement for professional land surveyors.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1038 and the Business Committee report.
To the Business Committee report, Representative Valdez.
In the Business Committee, we moved the amendment to strike out professional development to include continuing education.
Is there any further discussion on the Business Committee report to House Bill 1038? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The Business Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1038 would require continuing education for professional land surveyors. The requirements would be established by the state board who regulates land surveyors, engineers, architects under DORA. The The technology of surveying is changing at a rapid pace. The profession of surveying is changing and will continue to change as technology evolves. Two-man crews are being replaced by individuals using GPS mechanisms or drones. These new technologies are complex and require education. Exact surveys are needed to protect everyone's property rights. Surveyors protect an individual's property rights in everyday life or after natural disasters. The September floods or several years ago reminds us of the need for exact surveys in the times following a major disaster. Survey mistakes are expensive and continuous to resolve. When survey mistakes occur, they are difficult and most often costly to resolve. Litigation is in the process to settle these disputes, which is expensive and time-consuming. Continued education should help ensure these mistakes are never made in the first place.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1038? Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is a good bill. I've been speaking with some surveyors in my district and getting some examples of places where a surveyor who has not been keeping up with the technological changes has made big mistakes. There are some examples where a house was built on the wrong lot. There are examples where houses were built in the wrong place on the correct lot and had to be torn down and started from scratch. The technology is rapidly evolving for surveyors where they're increasingly using GIS rather than the older methods, and we need to keep our surveyors caught up with the technology so that they don't make these kinds of mistakes that really dramatically impact people's property rights. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Thurlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members, and thank you, Representative Valdez, for bringing this bill. I was a no vote in Business Committee, and I just wanted to tell you why. There's actually a study done by DORA to figure out if we needed to regulate the land surveyors. It's online. It's about a 13-page study, but I'll just read you the conclusions, very short. It says, the overwhelming majority of professional land surveyors currently licensed perform their jobs without incident. The applicant failed to demonstrate that the knowledge base for the profession across the board is changing, so that continuing education would be necessary. The applicant failed to demonstrate the effigy of continuing education with respect to maintaining or assuring competency of practitioners. And then the final line is the likelihood of a consumer being harmed by the PLS under the current licensing scheme is remote. So to me, that makes it one of those bills that is a solution to a problem that just doesn't exist. So that's why I was a no vote in committee. Now I'll be a no vote on the floor. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Representative Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, members, I'm going to be the renegade Republican here today. I voted for the bill, and I certainly am not one for any more rules or regulations than anybody, especially on this side of the aisle. I don't think any of us want more testing all the time, especially if it's unnecessary. But I listened very clearly to the testimony, and there were several land surveyors who were there who openly testified that they thought that continuing education was needed, and they made, I thought, a very reasonable case for why it's needed. For instance, an example they cited that if you have boundary lines that were drawn incorrectly, sometimes it's years that can go by before this problem is actually discovered, and then it creates further complications that can be very expensive to everybody. The other thing that was testified to by, I believe it was Paul Backus, who is the chairman of the Professional Land Surveyors, and a couple of others, is that a lot of times the surveyors will get together for an informal meeting, and they'll have an hourly meeting once a month to discuss their issues and so forth, and kind of bring a guest speaker in who's a professional land surveyor, and they'll talk about, hey, these are the latest trends, or this is the latest technology. And for those people who go to that little get-together, dinner and whatnot, they get, guess what? They get continuing education. and it's free. It's open to anybody. So, to everybody out there, like I say, none of us want to pay heavy-duty testing requirements and all that, but I thought that they made a good point that anybody can go, and especially if you're a land surveyor, you can get continuing education credit. So, all I would say to my colleagues and everybody, vote your conscience, and I thought it was reasonable, and this is from one who I'm generally against most rules and regulations, but I will be a yes vote for what that's worth. Thank you very much.
Okay, any further discussion on House Bill 1038? Yes, Representative Sias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And now, forced to choose between the two narratives by my colleagues on this side of the aisle, I will go with Representative Thurlow today. I voted against this in committee for a couple of reasons. First of all, I take notice of the fact that the agency in charge with assessing whether or not we needed to have continuing education in this area came down with a no, as Representative Thurlow mentioned. Also, I just wasn't compelled by the testimony that we actually need to have government mandating this. We did hear from a professional organization of land surveyors and noted that they do provide continuing legal education on a voluntary basis for their members. There is simply nothing to prevent them from, as an organization, mandating that training as a requirement for membership, and then anybody who is looking to hire a land surveyor can see who has membership in that organization and therefore has this training. I'm just not convinced that we need the government to do this. We also heard testimony from a land surveyor who opposed this bill, who talked about what he believed would be the massively increased costs for him to have to participate in this and pay for these particular courses. And he was, I would mention, cited by the folks that proposed the bill as someone who is very knowledgeable and educates himself on the subject. But there is, without going into tremendous detail, in my opinion, a cottage industry in other professions that drives up the cost, and where there is not necessarily a logical link between the education that is provided and charged for and the actual performance of the industry. So that's why I was a no vote on this, respectfully, and I do appreciate Representative Valdez bringing the bill.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill brings up the playing field on all levels through the state of Colorado. I don't know how many of you have ever run a rod before, but I have. This increases from Julesburg all the way to Greystone, Julesburg all the way to Towalk, from Greystone all the way to Springfield, from Montanito all the way to Carr, from Cheyenne Wells all the way to Fruita. This brings up the playing field for all surveyors in the state of Colorado. And I ask an aye vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1038? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1038. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1038 is adopted. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1031.
House Bill 1031 by Representatives Melton and Ransom, also Senators Cook and Jones, concerning employer entry into the Fire and Police Pension Association defined benefit system.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1031. There is no committee report.
To the bill. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And House Bill 1031 basically does two things. It simplifies the application process for employers to cover employees in the defined benefits program through FPPA instead of the money purchase plan. And then two, it allows the date to be set to require all new employees enroll in the DB plan. And so this is really just a bill to help streamline and simplify those who are enrolling into the FPPA.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the FPPA plan, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is for the fireman protection retirement fund, and it is very well funded. There are no issues with continuing. It's over 100% funded currently, and what we're doing here today with this bill, it includes safeguards to make sure that that funding stream is continued, that there are safeguards to make sure it stays well funded. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Melton?
Oh, no.
No, nothing? Okay. Representative Liston?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question of the sponsors. So, I think that's great that FPPA is overfunded. Is there any chance they can give any of that money to PARA to help them out? You don't have to answer that.
Right. Any other further discussion on House Bill 1031? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1031. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1031 is adopted.
Thank you. Well done.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1116.
House Bill 1116 by Representative Rankin, House Senator Moreno, concerning measures authorizing the Broadband Deployment Board to seek federal money earmarked for financing broadband deployment.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1116. There's no committee report.
To the bill, Representative Rankin.
Members, this bill is pertinent to our efforts to extend broadband to rural and underserved communities in the state. We've had efforts in the past that have done a good job, not the complete job. This bill is centers around an opportunity that is centered on the Connect for America 2 fund. It's a federal fund, $2 billion. We have the opportunity to request some of that money. The money in this bill goes up for auction in the first quarter of this year to private entities. The state of New York filed a waiver asking for some of the money to go directly to states. So this bill authorizes and requires that our Broadband Development Board submit a waiver to the federal government asking for funds to flow directly to the state. That money would be used to further our structure around these public-private partnerships that serve rural and underserved communities. This bill doesn't answer everything. It's just that request to the federal government. There will be other broadband bills coming along this year, I'm told. One's already been introduced, SB 2, that will further define our approach to broadband. So this is simply requiring and allowing our Broadband Development Board to request these funds from the federal government. So I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, let me start by applauding the Joint Budget Committee for their efforts to think outside the box to tackle this issue. And the issue, to be clear, is slow internet speeds in rural Colorado. Our internet speeds here in the metro area have increased dramatically over recent years, where in rural Colorado they are still slow. But I can't get on board with this proposal for two basic reasons. I see it has flaws. First, the federal program already exists today. Federal funds partner with private companies to do the work on the ground to help increase speeds in rural areas. This puts the state of Colorado, in direct competition with those companies for the same dollars. Second, it adds a new layer of bureaucracy. Right now, federal dollars goes to private companies to do the work. Under this bill, it's federal dollars, state of Colorado bureaucracy level, then private companies to do the work. So two questions, and they're hypothetical, mind you. Why compete with private companies who are doing the work that we want to be done? Why compete with them? And second, when was the last time an extra layer of bureaucracy ever helped anyone? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Rankin.
Those are good points, Representative Van Winkle, and certainly ones that should be debated in this context. The Connect for America Fund 1 has been out for some time, and many of our own companies, or several, are participating. CenturyLink, for example, has a substantial amount of money and is actually providing connections. But those connections are from a list that the federal government provides, and they don't allow the flexibility of public-private partnerships that are specifically oriented to the unique needs of rural Colorado and underserved communities. What we have done, and there are some real success stories, one of them in my own county, Rio Blanco County, for example, it's a combination of public money and private money built out in the middle mile, and now private entities are using that to hook up to homes. You can get a gigabit for $70. In areas served by private companies, you would pay $700 for that. So all this is a small amount of the total funds that allow us to tailor programs and to tailor partnerships that are unique to the needs of our community. No two of them will be exactly alike. They don't fit the pattern of this money handed down from the federal government with a prescribed list. We need this flexibility to build out the remaining 20% of Colorado that are dramatically underserved for schools, for telemedicine, and for people who work at home. It will not happen under just the flow of private money to a list of individual homes to be connected to. So we do need this small part of it. It's not the whole broadband picture of the state. It's a very tailored program for very special needs for rural Colorado, where I live. So I think it's a great opportunity to fuel the completion of broadband build-out in Colorado.
Representative John Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the sponsors, if you could answer the question of, first of all, does the CAF2 program actually hold out dollars for states to apply for them, or does that come out of the money for the privates first? Second, does it have to be, if this money does come to the state, does it have to be a public-private partnership, or can the broadband board, send it out to private companies as they do now to meet these needs that you're speaking about?
Representative Rankin.
Right. The money actually is allocated just to private companies and private grants. The difference is New York State, the only one so far, applied for a waiver to that provision and the FCC made the decision to grant money directly to the state. That's the first example, and that's what we are trying to piggyback on. So that's question number one. Question number two, we are hoping for a somewhat flexible structure. There will be another bill coming along that defines perhaps the rules that we're using on the Broadband Development Board that will affect how we can use the money.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1116? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1116. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. House Bill 1116 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole Big Sleeve report has under consideration the following attached bills being second thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1022, House Bill 1031, House Bill 1030, House Bill 1116 passes second reading or goes to place the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Foot. Members, you have heard the motion and there are no amendments. The question before the House is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Randall, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Majority Leader Becker is excused. Please close the machine. With 61 yes votes for excuse, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. I have several announcements today. There are going to be some temporary appointments for today only. On the Public Health Care and Human Services Committee, Representative Sane will replace Representative McKean. Representative Arndt will replace Representative Danielson. And Representative McLaughlin will replace Representative Michelson Janae. Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a sad announcement to make that Colorado has lost a good friend today. Jerry Gasco, who was the Director of Prisons for Colorado under John Suthers. Jerry Gasco was a 20-year veteran who was superintendent of Leavenworth. As a lieutenant colonel, he retired, came to Colorado, and became our Director of Prisons. He passed away last night at 9 o'clock after a heart attack and brain hemorrhage. But during his long service for the United States and for the state of Colorado, he performed extraordinarily for all of us. After retiring from Director of Prisons in what I would refer to as an extraordinary capstone career, Jerry Gasco organized the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People program in the Department of Corrections. Hundreds of correctional officers were trained in the principle-based program of 7 Habits, and then he began offering the program to inmates. So now this program, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, known in Department of Corrections as 7 Habits on the Inside, is offered to inmates and, in fact, uniquely in Colorado, is taught by inmates, many of whom are people serving life in prison. What the Department of Corrections will tell you is that as a consequence of the training, understanding, and deep embodying of the principles of 7 Habits, it is culture changing and transformative within the Department of Corrections. So too soon, too young, too early. Colorado has lost a champion in Jerry Gasco. I would ask for a moment of silence and respect for this remarkable individual.
Moment of silence is granted.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Representative Lee. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Public Health and Human Services. We are meeting today at 1:30. We will be in room 0107. For those of you who haven't seen the new room, now is your chance to be there for a couple hours. We'll be hearing the sunset review for the PT practice, as well as 3 bills, 1049, 1044, and 1068, as in your calendar. Look forward to seeing you all at 1:30.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, on Thursday we're having a health caucus in room 106, committee room 106, Thursday morning at 7:30 for an hour. That is a health caucus. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Health Insurance and Environment, again in room 107 in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Further announcements or introductions. Representative Carver. And Representative Lantine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're together on this today.
All right, good.
So I hope to get everyone's attention this morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Friday is Military Appreciation Day. And we have a lot of really wonderful folks who are going to be here. They will be here starting at 8 a.m. on the first floor. I think they're bringing coffee and things. Can you illuminate, Representative Carver?
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, we will have morning beverages to help you start the day, in addition to some great displays showing the breadth of our military sector, which certainly includes aerospace and defense. So as part of Military Appreciation Day, if you have a few minutes before the 9 o'clock morning session to go by the first floor and talk with these folks, I know they would greatly appreciate it, and I think you would find the information helpful. So we would invite you to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your efforts for Military Day as well. Any further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. Seeing no further announcements and introductions, Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until noon today.
All right, seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until noon today.
Thank you.